the Russia war against Ukraine, and the very dangerous escalation in the Middle East. I mean, Gaza, Lebanon, West Bank, whatever in the region. First, on Russia and Ukraine. For the first time, we were joined by Ukraine's new foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, to substitute our friend Kuleba. He briefed us about the continuing and intensified Russia escalation on bombing civilian targets with missiles, drones, and glide bombs. It's clear that Russia has been receiving new arms, in particular missiles from Iran. This is what we believe, even if the Iranians deny it, but it looks like. In any case, Russian drones and missiles has been continue to approach and in sometimes entering into the European Union member states' space. This is very risky. The Russian drones and missiles are entering and approaching, and in some cases, borderline entering in our airspace. Russia continues to hamper global food security. There is a long time without talking about food security, but the threat continues. Most recently, they have been hitting a ship transporting Ukrainian grain to Egypt, the Black Sea, in the Romanian economic zone. Not in the territorial waters, but in the Romanian economic zone. A ship transporting grain to Egypt has been hit by Russian missiles. In the middle of this situation, Ukraine is reacting fully and in line with its right to self-defense, Articles 51 of the United Nations Charter, and needs more than ever our support. On the last days, Ukraine managed to destroy important stockpiles of Russian weapons very deep into Russian territory, in some cases 500 kilometers from the border. And this has been important successes for the Ukrainian army. It was about 2 big stockpiles of ammunition at 500 kilometers of the border, which is certainly an important military capacity. On the other side, unhappily, there is the energy situation. This morning I attended the G7 Plus meeting chaired by Secretary of State Blinken and Ukrainian Foreign Minister, when we discussed about the energy situation in Ukraine. And it's clear that Russia wants to put Ukraine into the dark and the cold. The winter is coming, and following Russia attacks against energy targets, Ukraine energy production capacity has been reduced by 2/3. Just imagine, here in New York, or in any European Union member states, losing 2/3 of the energy capacity production. First, on electricity due to the siege of Zaporizhia by the Russian troops, and secondly, due to the last bombings, they lost 9 gigawatts of production capacity. And winter's coming, and we have to support Ukraine, not only providing military capacity, but electricity production capacity. Otherwise, this country will be facing a very hard time in winter. In order to support Ukraine, we have made at the Commission a proposal to raise up to 35 billion euros a loan to support Ukraine, both military and economically. And both things has to be done at the same time. It doesn't make sense to provide with an electricity generator today if it has to be destroyed tomorrow. It's not just destroy and replace. We cannot replace everything being destroyed because it will be an endless process. So we have to provide with electricity generation capacity, with energy production capacity. One member state is taking a power plant and taking it into pieces and sending to Ukraine to be reconstructed inside Ukrainian territory. But at the same time, you have to provide air defense capacity in order to avoid these capacities to being destroyed as soon as they are being put into work. And the call is to support Ukraine from energy and from the military side. And for that, we provided this loan, 35 billion. Well, it's a proposal. It's not done. It's a proposal. Sometimes we announce proposals as if they were decisions. The decisions belong to the Council. And the Council will have to take their position by qualified majority in this case. Yes, the situation in the battlefield, it's complicated, but Russia is still trying to fight in different fronts, especially in the one opened with success by the Ukrainian forces on the last weeks. But there is a critical situation for Ukraine. It is energy production. No civilized country, no industrial country can survive without energy, without electricity. When you lost 2/3 of your production capacity, you are on the brink. So we have to reinforce our capacity to supply capacities, both to replace what has been destroyed and to avoid this to be destroyed the following day. More air defense capacity and more capacity to allow the Ukrainians to attack the Russians from where the Russians are attacking them. From where they are attacking them. Otherwise, they will do it with full impunity. At the same time, there is a peace process, so there is a will to end the war. And we are supporting the process started by Ukraine to achieve a just and lasting peace, a real peace. This is the only viable way forward. This will be our coordinated message here in the United Nations this week, when we will meet our partners around the world. We will meet a lot of people around the world today, here, tomorrow, next week, this week. And we want to support the peace process started with the Summit of Peace in Switzerland this June. 110 countries and organizations participate in this process. We look forward to the presentation by President Zelensky of his victory plan, a different thing. Ukraine has to improve the military situation in order to go to the peace negotiations in a good way, in a position of strength. So victory plan is about how to conduct the war. Peace plan is about how to get peace. And one thing is strongly related with the other. We see other peace proposals emerging. And I want to be clear, any viable way forward has to be based on United Nations Charter respect. And these include Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, and the right to self-defense. There is a United Nations General Assembly resolution, February 2023, not so far away, with 141 votes in favor, and this should guide the peace efforts. And this resolution, allow me to remind it, call on Russia to completely and unconditionally withdraw from Ukraine following a cessation of hostilities. This remain a just and lasting peace basis. The Minister debriefed on Ukraine efforts to advance on the European Union on this path while defending itself from Russian aggression. And I welcome and I can only encourage this approach because remember, Ukraine is a candidate to become member of the European Union. And I'm mentioning it because in a few weeks, before the end of my term, I will present my colleagues in the Commission, together with my colleagues in the Commission, the next enlargement report, where we will take stock of the progress achieved by our candidates, and in particular by Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting in several fronts at the same time, doing the reforms required to be a member of the European Union, and fighting in the battlefield, and fighting in the rear guard, trying to make their civilian population to survive, to be protected from the attacks, and to have the economic and financial capacity to fulfill all the commitments of one state. And our military support to Ukraine has reached 46 billion euros with the last figures, which is certainly an important amount. And together with our economic, financial, humanitarian support, it's more than anyone else in the world, and overpassing the 100 billion euros. Then we discussed on the Middle East. The meeting was very short, but these two issues, together with a third one, Venezuela, kept the ministers very busy. On the Middle East, we discussed of the ongoing intensified hostility between Israel and Hezbollah across the Lebanese border and in Beirut itself, and the situation in Gaza and the West Bank. There is no more words to describe the situation in Gaza. There is no more words. The catastrophe continues. And the escalation in Lebanon is extremely dangerous and worrying. I was in Lebanon some days before, just before the explosion of these electronic devices has been creating terror among the Lebanese population. The escalation is extremely dangerous and worrying. I can say that we are almost in a full-fledged war. We're seeing more military strikes, more damage, more collateral damage, more victims. Since Tuesday, in Lebanon, 500 people has been killed, and over 4,400 people have been injured. Among them, a high number of children and women. And what do we see through the TV screens? We see thousands of people escaping to the north, provoking big jams on the transport system, escaping because they had been warned that the attacks will continue, and the bombing too. I was some days ago on the border between Lebanon and Israel, visiting the UNIFIL troops with a certain high-level degree of risk, and I learned from them how things are going, the intensity of the fighting, of the bombing, both sides. Each one has its own responsibility, but now we are seeing how civilians in Lebanon are paying an intolerable, unacceptable price. When in some days we talk about 500 people killed and 4,400 people injured, this is something that escapes any kind of consideration about the civilian casualties. And it's again the Geneva Convention to make explosive at distance without taking any consideration for the environment where these explosives are exploding. Either in a queue in a commercial center, in a public square, on a street, in a hospital, whatever. These are targeted and at the same time random attacks. Targeted because of the purpose and random because of the consequences. I condemn, I continue condemning it. The civilians are paying a high price in almost a full-blown war, which must be averted, including by renewing intense diplomatic mediation efforts. And here in New York is the moment to do that. Everybody has to put all their capacity to stop this path to war. 2 weeks ago, I said I was in the South Lebanon, And despite the warning signal, I think we are still hoping and working to stop this escalation. But the worst scenario, I have to say it, is materializing. The worst expectations are becoming reality. And we need peace in the Middle East, because the ongoing escalation is a danger for the whole region. And the path towards peace starts with a single step: ceasefire in Gaza. Ceasefire in Gaza and the implementation of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, which was adopted in 2006. My God, almost 20 years ago. Almost 20 years ago, I am still asking for the implementation of this resolution. You understand why the Secretary General of the United Nations have said this day that the Security Council is losing legitimacy? Because either they don't agree on anything, or when they agree, it's not implemented. This is a serious concern for the international community, and these are the words of the United Nations Secretary General. The multilateral system is grip, and this is the United Nations General Assembly who is taking the political lead because the Security Council is unable to take decisions. And when they take decisions, almost 20 years ago, we are still asking for its implementation. The resolution calls for a full cessation of hostility between Israel and Hezbollah and the withdrawal of both to the delimitation line. Well, we need to continue asking for this immediate ceasefire across the blue line, as well as the situation in Gaza. They are not different. They are interlinked. They are strongly interlinked. What's happening in Gaza is triggering other war scenarios in Lebanon, in the Red Sea, and unhappily, and we don't talk enough about it, on the West Bank. The West Bank, which is called openly Judea and Samaria by the Israeli authorities, as if it was already being annexed. Certainly, a ceasefire in Gaza is the only way to facilitate the escalation of the whole region. Not reached yet. It was a Biden plan, presented I don't know how many weeks ago, and by the way, presented as a plan coming from the Israeli side. Well, it's still not there. And yesterday we had an important dinner to discuss about the prospects of the peace in the Middle East. And someone said, and I think he's right, you start discussing about the political solution. Don't wait for the ceasefire, because the ceasefire maybe will not come ever, ever. So don't wait for that. Start discussing about the political solution, because you have been waiting for too long about the ceasefire. But I think it's our collective responsibility to continue asking for the international law, humanitarian law, engage with all parties, and to keep pushing them to the negotiation table. And that's what the foreign ministers will do, all of them in a coordinated manner in their outreach to partners this week. Let me add 2 words on Venezuela. The issue was raised by Spain at the beginning of our discussion. You know the situation in Venezuela. You know that we cannot recognize the legitimacy of Maduro as being democratically elected, that we regret that El Mundo had, the candidate from the opposition had to fly to leave the country and to look for political asylum in Spain. We will continue supporting the Venezuelans' right to democracy, to freedom and political rights. I ask the Venezuelan authorities to end the repression, to end the arbitrary arrest and harassment of the opposition and civil society. We call for an immediate return of the office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights to Caracas. And we insist that only a Venezuelan-led, peaceful and inclusive solution will make a democratic transition in Venezuela possible. And allow me to finish my green report with a positive note. The positive note is the pact for for the future adopted. It's a milestone for the international community. Certainly very much important. The Pact for the Future has been approved, and it shows that we can to come together and to take decisions if the interest of future generation is there. And I want to remark the Russians' attempt to spoil it and again to undermine our multilateral systems and the global cooperation. We held a tripartite meeting, African Union, European Union, United Nations, with the Secretary General yesterday. And together with our African partners, we have been working hand in hand in the adoption of this pact. It's, I can say, with an important contribution of the European Union member states, that this pact has been agreed. And I think that we have been working hard in order to take into consideration the concerns of the African people all around the world were very much interested in approving this pact, while Russia was trying to obstruct this agreement. But happily, it has been clearly isolated in this purpose. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions, and we'll be asking them in the microphone. And we'll start with the arena. What's the America Ukraine?
Thank you so much. Mr. Borrell, can you say, did you discuss this victory plan today on this meeting with your colleagues? And the second question, you already said it a couple of times that you deeply believe that Ukraine shouldn't have any...
Speak slowly, speak slowly.
Okay.
Take it
That
easy.
you believe that Ukraine shouldn't have any limits with using the weapon, like Western weapon on Russian territory. Do you see any positive signs that this decision can be eventually made? Thank you.
We will continue discussing that during this week, and in particular at the G7 level. I am leaving you to attend a meeting of the G7. This was an informal meeting, and an informal meeting, decisions are not taken. In any case, member states consider that this is something that belongs to their national capacity to decide. Some has been already taking this decision, others still not, or they don't want to, and others, maybe they haven't, but they don't say it. In any case, I know that inside and even the decision-making process of the US, this is being discussed. I will continue discussing it during this week. You know my position. The position is clearly in favor. Not everybody is supporting this position, but let's see what is the position at the end of the week.
Yeah, and the victory plan, have you discussed the victory plan on this meeting?
Victory plan. Did you discuss it?
We don't know the victory plan. We know the label, but no, we have to wait to know what is inside the box. No?
Mr. Borrell, Adla Masood from The National.
Speak louder, slowly.
Louder?
Louder,
Okay.
yes.
I thought I was speaking very loud.
No.
Okay, I have two questions for you. First one is about Lebanon. You said we're almost in a full-fledged war. Do you expect an Israeli invasion very soon of Lebanon? A ground invasion, I mean. And my second question, will you be meeting with the Iranians this week to discuss Lebanon and to discuss weapons sent to Russia, Ukraine?
Yes, I'm going to have a meeting with my Iranian counterpart. I always do it. This is my seventh and last UNGA, seventh. And I always met with the Iranian minister. Unhappily, I'm sorry, the last one was, as you know, it was killed in a helicopter accident. I know the new minister because I've been working with him in the past. We will discuss about everything, and in particular the nuclear deal, the support to Russia. We'll do it, but I cannot tell you before doing it. But we have to keep lines of communication with Iran open. Whatever we disagree and whatever we think things are not doing on the right way, there is a new president in Iran. The new president of Iran has been meeting with the president of the European Union Council. It's normal. And we have to continue having lines of communication with Iran. And that's why my political director attended the inauguration in Iran. And we will continue discussing with Iran, even to tell them what we think is being done wrong. I don't know, how do you call? Even less than 1 week, I don't know the figures I gave to you, I don't want to make a mistake, but in less than 1 week, 4,400 people are wounded and almost 500 killed. If this is not a war situation, you will tell me, how do you call it? Certainly has not been a land invasion. I am not member of the staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, so I cannot tell you which are their plans. But it's clearly that they have been announcing once and again that the only solution is to a full-fledged war, invasion. It's not an invasion, but there are air attacks, there are strong bombing. I don't want to say that on the other side, Hezbollah doesn't have a lot of responsibilities also. Everybody has to understand who is doing what. But certainly the influence of Iran in Lebanese politics is evident. But from one side and the other, due to the war in Gaza or whatever, hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced, both in the north and in the south. Also in the south, 150,000 Israelis also had to leave. But the solution is, I think, is not to increase the level of warfare. I don't know if it's going to be a land invasion or not, but some cases you don't need to. You don't need to. You have a strong aerial control, and you have a strong military capacity to bomb. Maybe you don't need to invade. I am worried by the situation of the United Nations forces in Lebanon. Certainly, they could be caught in a fight, and I hope that this is not going to create a difficult situation for them.
Thank you.
AFP?
Yes, hi, thanks for doing this. I always,
You want to get?
oh, yeah, oh, I have to get up.
That's the price of question.
No, thank you for doing this, sir. Just a question on, you condemn, you call for a ceasefire. You're not the only one, of course. Israel does not seem to be listening. What more can you do? For instance, tonight with the G7, what more can you do? Europe can do. What more can the U.S. do to really influence Israel on this issue? Thank you.
That's a good question. Certainly, it seems that in spite of all the diplomatic capacity that we have deployed, nothing has been able to stop the war. And I see that this peace negotiation, both sides are procrastinating. They pretend to, but in fact, for one reason or another, there is not a ceasefire agreement. So in these situations, in the past, have a look at the history. The history is very long. The history is very, very, very long. In 82, it was 82, I mean 60 years ago. 60 years ago, it was a big war in Lebanon. And in 1991, in 1982. And in 1991, it was a peace process in Madrid. And in both cases, the diplomatic pressure came together with some, let's say, incentive measures. And it seems that by the time being, it's not the case. And why should I change my behavior if I don't pay any penalty for doing? Why should I change? if there is no consequences. This week we'll talk about it.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Hmm.
Thank you. Mike Hanna from Al Jazeera. The Al Jazeera bureau has been closed in Israel, and now in the last few days, our operations have been shut down in the West Bank, which is being illegally occupied by Israel. Now, once again, this is an example of Israel acting with impunity. It's an action on the press, but it also appears to be typical of what you have just said, of it is operating without any pressure from outside forces.
Yes, the closing of the Al Jazeera offices was in Ramallah, no?
Yes.
Ramallah offices.
Well, throughout the West Bank, effectively.
And with the West Bank, it's very bad news, and certainly have to condemn it. Israel has imposed in Gaza the longest blackout in a war of the history. The longest blackout. No press inside Gaza. Only Al Jazeera, paying a high toll on the number of journalists being killed. And this is something that everybody has been condemning. But believe me, I don't have any capacity to make this behavior to change. And this makes a lack of information on what's happening inside Gaza or what's happening in the West Bank. But that's a fact. I am not inventing anything. This is a blind situation where there is no witness. Nobody is there being able to explain and to show what's happening. Al Jazeera was there and was giving a precious service to the information of the people. So I regret and I condemn the closing of the office in Ramallah.
Last question, Le Monde, very good.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Mr. Borrell, for this meeting. A quick follow-up on Leon's question from AFP. First of all, how do we take, or how do you take the fact that these attacks happen in this moment when it was supposedly a week where everybody was supposed to meet in New York and discuss peace? Do you take this as a provocation already? And my second question, I'm coming back to Leon's question. This morning, one of the 27 head of states told us only Netanyahu can stop this. You're telling us we need to do concrete actions, we need to push. So what kind of concrete actions can be taken? Or are we in total powerlessness?
You know, I am not a commentator. I am not a politolog, I'm not a think tanker. I have full responsibility on what I'm saying and what I cannot say. So you will understand perfectly that, you know, the diplomats have to say the truth, only the truth, but not all the truth. So there are issues in which I cannot enter without being taking a lot of risk. But have a look at the history. I cited you 2 dates in the history, 82 and 91, and explore what's happening then.
And what can you do? What are your tools in your toolbox?
We have. Well, thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for presenting things in a way that is not exactly the best situation, but the things are the way they are. And put the action on the positive note that we agreed on the Pact for the Future. And that Russia was completely isolated in this discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.